Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Novio podcast. Did you miss me? Of course you did. So recently I did a solo episode because honestly, I don't do a lot of solo episodes. I really should. That way you guys can get to know a little bit more about me, but I will. But for this one, I do have a guest, and I'm actually glad that I have a guest because honestly, y'all, we are in LA, right? We're in LA. There's a lot of people that be coming out here in LA. I'm not from here. I'm from San Diego originally, but I do believe it's important to tap into the people that one live here, the people that know the culture, and also the people that really know what is happening in the city. Because I do believe sometimes, when people come out to LA, they just see the blase of Hollywood. They see the lights, they see the glitter, but there's a lot of rich history and culture in the city. And what's the best way to get to know the city? Well, by a real Angelino. So I want to tap in with my guest. She is from East LA, East Los, and she goes by Hungry in East Los. So Laura, welcome to the
Thank
Ito Novio
you.
podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
First of all, I want to give you a shout out. You look phenomenal. I love the glasses. I love the
My
colors.
eyelash is coming for my life right now.
Very on brand, I believe. So I know you're from East LA, and those that are watching this episode, tell us a little bit about East LA, because I do know there's some people that are like, this is considered East LA, this isn't considered East LA. Tell me the division of what truly makes East LA.
That's a whole can of worms. So, specifically, just I'm gonna give you history about how the hell I'm here in East Los. So, I was born in Bellflower, but I don't claim that because that's just where the hospital was.
Right.
So, I came into my life and upbringing and entire life for the most part in East LA. Um, and I have a generation of folks who were here before me. So
Mhm.
my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, migrated in the 1950s, worked with the Braceros program, got deported, and then came back with his younger brother. And their like landing place was East LA. The house that
Wow.
I currently live in right now is the house that my dad grew up in. So I like to say that first and foremost. I'm very close to Monterey Park, close to El Sereno, close to
Mhm.
Alhambra, close to Boyle Heights. So there's a huge issue with people in community when you're standing in Boyle Heights and you say you're in East Los. I think it's
Mhm.
territorial, to be honest. I'm never one to trash on anybody unless it's inequitable,
Right.
racist, or big, right? But it just makes me laugh because a lot of people try to correct me. I wake up and I walk a block or two and I might be in Boyle Heights. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think that it means a lot to people, though, rightfully so, because we live in a community rich with history. So I
Yeah.
think they want to put some respect on the name, which is why I'm like, okay. But if I woke up in East Los and I walked to Boyle Heights, I can't like I'm not differentiating. Um, but yeah, I think that's where the conversation comes in when it comes to like people saying like, where is it? I actually grew up in an unincorporated area in East Los called City Terrace. So I also
Mm.
know that, and that's like some hills. Like if you know, you know. But it's an area that is completely like City Terrace. But when I say that, a lot of people are like, "Oh, where is that?" And I explain it, but it's in East
Mhm.
Los. So yeah, there's a lot of really great communities. Like I said, there's El Sereno, there's Lincoln Heights. Sometimes when people are in Lincoln Heights, they say I'm in East Los. Sometimes people are in Highland Park and they say East Los, and that's Northeast Los. But it's
Right.
just sometimes people get a little upset. They try to fight, and I'm just like, I'm a East Los
Fighting
queen.
words.
Yeah, Boyle Heights also raised me, and like, yeah, it's funny, but yeah, that's like a little tidbit of like my history with East Los.
No, thank you for sharing because I mean, like I mentioned, I'm originally from San Diego. I was born in Tijuana. So, I've been around Latino
Arriba,
people.
arriba, Baja California.
No, yes. I have the shot to prove it.
I love it.
No, but yeah, like I've been around a lot of Latinos out here, and then when
Mm,
I came to LA, obviously there was that culture shock, and I lived in Boyle Heights for a year during the pandemic.
mm,
And that time being in the pandemic, being inside your house, I was looking online for just community,
mhm.
and I really got to see a lot of different people that quote unquote, like, yes, they're influencers, but they're really people that are down for the community, like Locatora Radio. I don't know if you know the.
I
Yeah,
love Malandiosa. Yes.
yeah. So I honestly, like, when I was introduced to you, I was like, wow, like, you really rep your city. So I want to first ask you, can you define hood gastronomy? What is it, and why do you feel so like passionate about putting and highlighting mom and pop shops or places that really don't get that recognition online?
Yeah. So the story of how Islo started was because a famous place called Carnitas, it was called 24 hours if you were from the hood, at least in
Hmm.
my community of people. It was called 24 hours because that's where we went to get carne asada fries, a hot chocolate. I was in high school, it's like 24 hours will always be open. But I think it was
Hmm.
Carnitas Michoacan is the official name, which I should look it up. I think I forgot. There's a picture of it on my Instagram somewhere. It's where I've had my first date in high school, and it closed down to open up for a Panda Express. And
Mm.
all around this time specifically, so corporate, right, replaced this place that was like a hood gem. I wouldn't say it was like top notch, right, carne asada fries, but it was a hood staple that people really appreciated going to for community, to be honest. It was like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with King Taco,
Oh yeah,
like
that
a
was one of the first
hood.
places I came here, and that was
Yeah.
a totally different vibe from back home in San Diego.
Yeah, it was like a hood King Taco, like a little more hood. They have carne asada fries. So when that was happening, also gentrification has been an ongoing thing, an ongoing issue in our community. Highland Park was highly affected when the Gold Line was constructed to go from Pasadena through East Los through Boyle Heights. Like that brought on like a lot of like influx of folks coming in and buying real estate and displacing people. And it's still happening,
Mhm.
right? It's happened a little more slowly, in my opinion, in like the areas that I grew up in, but it's still in my hills. I have people walking by looking scared of me in City
Yeah.
Terrace where I grew up. And so it's like, fuck y'all, like this is my hood. Um,
Right.
so it started because that place shut down, and my dad has been taking me to places that he used to go to as a kid or as a teen or as an adult in the 80s and 90s before he had me. Um, I was like, I don't want these places to shut down for a Panda Express. I don't want these
Mhm.
places to go corporate. Like I want to like shed light on like family owned businesses, people of color owned businesses. So that was like the get from how it started. And the reason why I use the term hood gastronomy is because I think that the food industry is still very white. And I think there's
Mm.
people doing a really great job of food journalism. And I think LA Times with their Latino initiative, Delos is doing it. I think LA Taco has been doing it, with a lot of journalists of color that are super talented telling stories of the hood. But if it's aside from these spaces, and there's probably others, right? I don't want to like say that's an exhaustive list. I know there's so many people doing good work. The
Mhm.
general understanding, and then even beyond the bubble that I live in, I understand that the food industry is a very white one. And so when
Yeah.
you hear gastronomy, you typically like hear like like fine dining, right? Like a moose bouche, right? That flavor of the mouth, like all of these things that a lot of people of color, we have different experiences with food. I think a taco is just as magical as something that's plated in a more Eurocentric way. And so
Yeah.
I like to move away from the term foodie because one thing I respect foodies, I follow foodies. I'm here for like
Oh,
learning
me
about
too. I like to
this.
eat.
Yeah, and like the quick, like this is where you can get this, this, this. I like to focus on the story with the hood gastronomy. So for me, hood gastronomy means like this is the place that some people might not like to go to because you're frou frou. But if you know,
Mhm.
you know. And that's whether if you're Tijuana, that's if you're from Mexico City, that's if you're from East Los, that's if you're from Lakewood, from Long Beach, any hood that you're repping. For me, hood gastronomy means a place that by just looking at it, it might be fire. By
Yeah.
looking at the senora cooking or like the elders cooking or the community, young community, because there's so many places popping up with younger folks who are part of the generation who used to run the streets. Like you just
Mhm.
know and you feel it. So that's what I mean when I say that. Like I think it's about like honoring the people just as much as you're honoring the food, and also like moving away from this idea that food culture needs to be like fine dining, and that it needs to be esteemed by white people before we accept it. Like I think the Michelin guide is amazing. I like to fine dine. Like that's
There was
one
a taco shop. There's a taqueria in Mexico
thing.
City that just got a Michelin star. And I
Yes.
think it's so important that you mentioned, like some of the best hidden gems out here in the city don't even have a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
They're literally from street vendors or food
Yep.
vendors from the streets.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's important to note that. Like, it's like, why do we care so much about this guide? Although
Mhm.
part of me understands it and like geeks out over it and enjoys it. But at the end of the day, like this idea that we have to strive to be, it's kind of upsetting. But I also give a huge shout out to the people setting like a new norm as they're
Mhm.
getting Michelin guides. So I guess it's just a way of like fucking up and challenging systems and the ways that we think about things.
No, facts. And I love too that you focus not just on highlighting, because I totally get it. Everyone's content style is different. Some people
Yes.
really focus on like the food aspect. I think
Mm,
you do a good job of balancing both the food, but also the people that manage the shops, that cook the food. So, what got you into this type of multimedia journalism? Like, were you always like, you know what, after college or whatever, like, I'm gonna just start a page? How did the page start, and how did you get like cojones to be like, hey, I'm gonna put myself on camera because that's kind of scary.
right. I was about to say, first of all, I'm a bad bitch. Just kidding.
Right. No, yeah.
I'm a
Period.
theater. I'm a theater kid, so that you should know that from the get. Like in high school, I was in musicals. I was the witch in Into the Woods. I almost got casted as Anita, but then we switched it to Into the Woods. Like I love being in front of a stage. Like it's like my
Mhm.
drug, I guess you can
What's
say.
your sign? Ooh.
Libra.
I'm a Libra
Oh,
too.
nice. When's your
October
birthday?
13.
Oh, I'm the 22nd.
Oh shit. Okay. Honestly, Libras, we really be out there.
We run the world. We're great.
Yes.
I'm hearing a lot of slander lately, but I decided not to listen to it. But yeah, so no, it didn't happen after college. I got my
Mhm.
bachelor's degree from Cal State LA. And I always thought I wanted to be an immigration attorney because I
Oh
saw
wow.
like the struggles my family went through in 2006 in high school when like the anti-immigration policy, I mean, it still exists, but there
Mhm.
was a lot happening politically. And like my mom was able to become a US citizen. My maternal grandmother was too. A lot of my family members were able to, but I saw like the issues they could have faced if they did it. And I also saw the issues they faced because they were like migrants, like
Right,
I
yeah.
saw how my mom was treated. And so I was like, I'm gonna be an immigration attorney. And then I graduated from Cal State LA, and I was like, I applied to like 12 law schools. I got waitlisted at one. Shout out to the University of San Francisco.
Mhm.
But during my journey in college, I was also very active. So I was also in a theater production in college. I was really like I've always been about social justice. So I was always organizing some kind of protest, some kind of event. I was a student program coordinator of the Chicanx Latinx Student Resource Center back then. And so
Mhm.
my boss there, shout out to Nam Ung, he was like, hey, you're applying to law school. Like, do you have a plan B for like a different kind of program? And so he encouraged me to apply to a program for student affairs at Teachers College at Columbia University in New York. And I was like, you're tripping. I was like,
Oh.
okay, Nam, that's
Not even
cute.
in California.
Right. I was like, first of all, New York, second of all, Columbia, third of all, education. What? Like, it was all kinds of like, what? But he's
Yeah.
like, the work that you're doing right now and the work that I do to help you, you can become that for someone else. And I was like, that's a career, because I genuinely felt like I was planning parties with an emphasis of education where people were just learning about equity and social justice, but having a good time. And I was like, this is a job. So
Yeah.
it's student affairs, right? It's higher and post secondary education. It's supporting students through graduating, essentially. So
Mhm.
I got waitlisted at law school, and when I got into Columbia, my family was like, "You're stupid if you take a break to get wait into law school." And it worked out because, to be honest, I don't think I would have survived law school. Like I have my best friend is a lawyer. She's a
Mhm.
badass, but I see the struggles she goes through, and I don't know if that would have been I don't know if that would have been like my cloth. So I
Yeah.
went to grad
Shout out to
school.
the people that advocate for, the students and that
Yeah, yeah,
literally
exactly.
were like, you're in the wrong path.
Right, right. I feel like it would have been different. So yeah, I graduated with my master's degree with organizational leadership with an emphasis in higher education. And then that's what I did my whole life. Like I started at the nonprofit supporting students going out of top tier LAUSD students going to school at top tier universities around the nation. So I would visit a school in Pennsylvania, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And I would
Mhm.
support the LAUSD students there. And then I transitioned back to Cal State LA for a full time coordinator role. So it was full circle. It was like now I'm doing what my boss said I would do as a young kid, right? I'm becoming that mentor that I had.
Yeah.
And then 2016 came around and I was at Cal State LA, and that's when the Carnitas Michoacan closed down. And I was like, and I've always had a creative monster inside of me.
Mhm.
But figuring out how to like unleash it, because I never graduated. When I was a kid, I used to say I want to be like Andrew Zimmerman. I think that's his name, and he would like
Oh
try to
yeah, yeah,
cartoon.
yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I would watch that show and be like, I want to do that one day. But it was one of those things that it's like I said it once and then I forgot. I wanted to be an immigration lawyer. I wanted to do all these things. And then now that I'm doing this, I'm like, okay, I haven't traveled the world yet, but it's so wild how you manifest
It's
things as a
coming.
kid.
It's
Yeah, like
coming.
you
Yeah.
manifest things as a kid, and I'm like, wow. So it wasn't like a college dream, but it
Mhm.
started in 2016, just slowly. I started with pictures, and obviously, like reels and videos and content has changed so much since 2016, even.
I
So
totally
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah,
Like,
it's
to be
wild.
honest, like it wasn't until the pandemic where well, obviously we all had time to be in the house and be in our
Yeah,
head. it wasn't until the pandemic that I was like, no, I love creativity. And then I
Yeah.
started putting the pieces together. I'm like, bro, like I was in college radio back in college. I was
Yes.
in the yearbook. Like I would always do a bunch of different stuff. It's like now as an adult, I guess, and now that I'm like a little bit more courageous to be myself, I'm
Yeah.
able to do that. But I wanted to talk to you about like, okay, so like your life really, you had a 360, it was redirected. I love that you mentioned that there was a job for something that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
So how are you paving the way for yourself now? Because yes, you have, you know, this college degree and you're able to assist the students, but how are you assisting yourself with like online hosting, being an online presence? What do you consider yourself, or what type of media journalist do you consider yourself, or do you have a title of what you
To be
call
honest,
yourself?
I'm still so I don't work with students anymore as of last October. I transitioned to a job that pays me better as a diversity, equity, and
Hey.
yeah, so I'm doing similar work, but for full-time employees for a company.
Hmm.
So I still do that full time. And so when I think about like more recently started introducing myself as a multimedia journalist because I had this like imposter syndrome, and people
Hmm.
were like, "You're making videos and writing for the LA Times. Like, what is this? You know, like what?" So I needed to challenge that within me. Like, I'm not yet because how many articles am I gonna need to write? But yeah, I think I'm just like a creative first and
Yeah.
foremost. And then when it comes to multimedia journalism, to be honest, you asking me this question is a reminder to push myself to reach for more. But I have been so blessed and privileged to have
Hmm.
opportunities. Literally, I don't know. I don't even want to sound like an asshole. I feel like I sound like such a like. If I were listening to myself, I would eye roll. I'd be like, "Bitch." But to be honest, it has come from just being visible. Like the first
Yeah.
article that I ever wrote was for LA Taco. Shout out to them. And it was because I posted a comment on a beloved carnitas restaurant that shall not be named because I'm not trying to be in any lawsuits and they
Right,
hated me.
right,
But they were posting all lives matter instead of Black Lives Matter. Not to say that they had to, like I'm not saying right, but they weren't
yeah.
aware. Community was upset. Community was like, "What the fuck do you mean all lives matter?" Because for those of us who have the privilege to understand movements, we know that All Lives Matter was born indirectly to directly to oppose Black Lives Matter, right? Like
Right.
we can all
Mhm.
fundamentally understand that all humans matter, but we need to
Mhm.
know that when we hear All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter, those are two movements that were born out of hate to say fuck Black lives, essentially,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I went on the Carnitas like Instagram post where they were like, "Fuck, I don't care what anybody says. All lives matter." And I put a little paragraph, really nice, like, "Hey y'all, I think people are upset because of this." Dropped
Mhm.
the mic, walked away. I said, "I just want to, like, let me let my people know, like, let me support people." And the editor of LA Taco was like, "I saw your comment. Do you want to write an article about anti-blackness within Latino communities?" And I was like,
Wow. And you
like
had to say yes or no, right? Make a decision.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about me is that unless I'm being like mistreated or unless like now I could say like now I do want to get paid, right? Before it was like, oh, I could take on more free opportunities and I still want to do things for free, but I'm saying like I will not say no unless I don't feel the vibe. Like someone invited me to their podcast and it was a misogynist ass man. I'll say no
Mhm.
when I feel energies that are not for me, and I'll say yes when it's to community, you know?
Right.
So I was like, and I told him I was like, I've never studied journalism and I know how to write because I was an English major in
Mhm.
my undergrad. But I was like, and he's like, "Don't trip, I got you." His name's Javier Cabral. I'm sure you know about him, but if not, like he's a writer for
Yeah.
yeah. And he helped me out. And then from there, it was like a spooky themed coffee lemonade stand that now has their brick and mortar, Mystics Cafe. They were like, "Do you want to write about this lemonade stand coffee shop?" And then it was like this. And then I started pitching. And then, so it just like, it tumbled. I think I wrote, I think 11, 13, 14. I don't know how many pieces I wrote for them. And through that experience, they also, then they saw how like I started getting more on camera myself. Before it was just the food
Yeah. Put yourself on.
I'm funny. I was like, let me get on
Yeah.
here. If anything, I'm my own biggest fan. Like I crack up in my own videos. Even if people don't think I'm funny, I'm like, listen, I made myself laugh, and that's enough. So yeah, I
You
started this.
really have to be your own biggest fan, to be honest. Like, if
Ooh,
you don't even find yourself entertaining, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And there's an audience for everybody. That's the most important
mhm.
thing to remember too. Like I feel like a lot of people get stuck in their head because they're like, well, I'm not getting enough this or this. It's like just keep going. Because I mean, I started with like 100 followers and I have never once paid for followers. I mean, I guess I've done a couple of giveaways, but like it's never been like oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go to get, and that's wild to me because I never thought I would have 15,000 people following like my bullshit. I'm always like, I'm a desmadrosa on there. Like I'm literally, my biggest thing is also to be authentic. When you were talking about multimedia journalism, like
Yeah.
authenticity is so important to me. So I think it's really beautiful. Like a friend of mine, Karen Lopez, she's a producer, she's amazing. She tells me, like, I feel like if you would have studied journalism, you would have tried to do it in a way that people are trained to. But she's like, you didn't study
Mm-hmm.
this. Like being an on camera, like when I get on camera, most of the time I'm just mad libbing. But I hosted like a series called Hanging with Taqueros. I did my
Mm-hmm.
own YouTube live show for a year with LA Taco. And like a lot of it was just lo que me salía. And like I would write notes and bullet points, but she's like, other people would freak out to do it in a certain system and it comes naturally. And I just have to
Yeah.
like run with that gift. Like I keep on thinking like, because I didn't study it, I don't know this and I don't know that. But it's like if you have what it takes, and that's just not just in journalism, anywhere, like just run with it. People fall
You
into it
gotta.
so beautifully. Like people organically fall into what they're meant to do regardless. Because look at me, I'm literally an example of that. I
No,
never
I love that.
I would
I
like
think
working with the LA Times and
I think what's really beautiful too is like regardless of the the followership that you have, these are people that really vouch for you. You
yeah,
know what I mean? They like your content, they connect with you on your videos. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, has there ever been a moment where you were like, wow, like this article that I wrote or this feature that I was a part of, not only was it good on paper, but like it really touched them. Like, has there ever been like an emotional, like super emotional aspect of the work that you've done, like the human aspect of it?
To be honest, every single one to an extent, because it's been really cool. Like the first one I think is most special because I think that it resonated with a lot of people to like have start that conversation. And I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
only one who's been having the conversation about anti-blackness within like non-black Latino communities, because obviously there are black Latinos too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um but I think that specifically showed me like community rights hard for, because people came at me like I had so much hate, like you're turning your back on your own kind, and I'm like like black people are
Right.
black people too, like what?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that one was like, it showed me that community rights hard, and it showed me like how beautiful it could be when people come together. And my intention was never to like blast that place. Also, like my intention was to show as an example of learning, because the person
Mm-hmm.
said, I won't use it again now that I know I understand. But everyone took it as like a boycott this place, you know. And then they
Right.
buckled down. Then they were misogynists, and then I was like, now fuck that place, you know, it's
Right.
different. um
You're
but
all
yeah,
done.
and I can't talk about it too much right now, but I recently just wrote an article that's going to be hopefully published by the end of the year. That was very touching, but it every time that it's touching, I should say that it's because it really matters to me to tell people stories.
Yeah.
Like I wrote about a carnitas place who started up because it was a dad who passed away, and him and his wife would wake up every morning to sell carnitas by Avenue 26. And this was, I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
if you're familiar with the Avenue 26 night
I've
market.
been to the market. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a newer one now. There was one that was actually on Avenue 26, and it got
Mm-hmm.
shut down um because it just code like the LA food. Like, it was just people were wilding out essentially. And I'm not saying I support the fact that it closed, but now it's a little
Right.
bit more organized, right? The way that it exists. But in that space, this mother and son like continue to carnitas business even after the dad passed away. And like even
Mm-hmm.
telling their stories about what their carnita business means to them. It's not just like a taco, you know, like when you're supporting these people, you're supporting their livelihood and like continuing to fulfill the dream of the person who passed away who means so much to them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think for the most part when they're touching, it's because I also like I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but like so many of our people like fall into such dope situations because of hard work. And like
Mm-hmm.
that story isn't told. Like if you go to a coffee shop and it's Latinx owned, or like, you know, it's owned by somebody, most of the time you're like, this coffee's bomb, and it's like, oh cool, it's Latino owned, yay, solidarity, right? But when you get to
Right.
know the story about what people go through to
Mm-hmm.
like make that shit happen, like that is the magic. And that's why most of the time it's like super touching. Like shout out to DJ Sizzle and her
Oh, I
mom.
love her cumbiathon. I love
Yes,
her.
she had a restaurant. Unfortunately, it's closed now, but she had Sazon in
Mm-hmm.
Huntington Park, right? And I wrote about
Yeah.
their space. And obviously, like opening a business during the pandemic, like like my hats off to them. Like they hustled.
Yeah.
But even the story of like vendederos ambulantes and like transitioning from street vending, and how like that was perceived as like poverty and all that, but like now having had that experience of having their own place, like for me it's that hard work and like that like resilience essentially that people have. So every single one in one way or another has really touched me.
I love it too that you call yourself like a desmadrosa.
Oh
You
yes.
know, you are a go-getter. And you're hungry and eat slows. Like you embody that. Has there ever been a time where you feel confined, I guess, to just the food, multimedia? Or are you a creator that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just post whatever I want to because that
Yeah.
is also a part of who I am. I'm multifaceted.
Yeah, I did feel like that at one point, and I don't even remember what that point was, where I was like, should I even be posting my face, or should I like be like doing this or that, like questioning
Mhm.
what was right. And then I was like, nah, like my purpose on this page is to be myself and authentic. And so I
Mhm.
thought, like, should I start another page for like my journalist work? And I'm like, it's all connected. And then
Right.
there have been times where the articles that I write about aren't about food. Like I wrote about the slaughterhouses in Vernon and how their scents affect like all of our communities, right? And that was a
Mhm.
really cool piece to write because it was my first like investigative piece. And I haven't written one since then, but it challenged me as a writer. And so like I don't think I want to. One thing about me when you think about desmadre is that I don't want to be confined within like
Mhm.
you have to continue to do it the way other people do it. Like there was a
Right.
point in time where I was like, fuck, should I become that like this is the best bite here. This is what they have. Make sure to follow. Like that is
Yeah.
a very beautiful recipe. And so
Mhm.
many people who tell us about the bomb food places do great, right? Like I like love I literally was watching them on my lunch hour. Like, where am I gonna have dinner with my boo tonight?
Right, yeah.
But I was like, am I wrong? Like, am I like doing something wrong? And could I be getting more followers if I do that? And I was like, what the fuck am I saying? Like, I am growing a following regardless, and I need to continue to pave it in my own way because then I'm gonna lose myself, you know? And
Mhm.
so I try to do different things. Like sometimes I try to do it quicker because I know the attention span of our generations is like shortening. Like I
Oh,
see
it's short.
like it works. Yeah. But yeah, I think once I get those feelings and I realize like some like my content is still successful, I just
Mhm.
challenge it. And I'm always willing to like adapt. Like I might try something, but I never want to just stay confined to food. And I mean, it's wild to me that this page alone like brought me to do so many amazing opportunities. Like I never thought I would get paid to host my own YouTube show. Never in
Yeah.
my life would I think that. I've met celebrities through interviewing them. Like I never thought I would interview Felipe Esparza for the LA Taco Live with Laura. So I think I have to like I remind myself when I question myself, like continue to do it and also take advice from like mentors, like all
Yes.
the people in my life who have provided really good feedback, like also like hearing them and having an open heart to that is always important.
I think it's so important for anyone listening, honestly, like
Yeah.
to create authentically for yourself. And I know
Yeah.
you mentioned too, like there's a lane for everything.
Yup.
And I I'm literally on the same boat because sometimes I'm like, dang, should I post makeup? I don't even wear makeup like that, to be honest. That's just me. But
Right.
I'm like, it's just not authentic to me to do it on for my page. You know what I mean? Because that's
Yup.
not really for me. So there are people that just like vibe with you with whatever it is that you create, whether
Yeah.
it's music, whether it's dancing, whether you want to cook in your kitchen, like literally. And I think it's that whole like imposter syndrome. We're always comparing ourselves.
Yup.
So I want to ask you, like, how do you keep yourself grounded? Like, do you have a community of other creators that you kind of like? You'll be like, am I tripping? Like, can someone like get me back together? Who do you bounce off
My
ideas and
partner is a
better
huge
yourself?
part of it. Like my partner is like always listening to me and he's super supportive. So it's like I every time I second guess it, he's like, no, like that's dope or no, this. So him like living with someone like that who like hypes me and like quiets my like weird anxiety. Because I am a person who lives with anxiety and I second guess everything. So it's really
Me too.
helpful.
That's such a Libra thing.
Yeah, it's like everything makes me anxious and I'm indecisive as shit. So it's
Me
like, oh my
too.
God. And then my homegirl Karen, who we started a page together, which we haven't been posting too much too, but it's called oh my gosh, how am I forgetting what it's called?
Shout out to Karen.
Yes, Karen Lopez, Karen girl, I love you. I'm like shook.
It'll come to you.
I'm like edit this part out because I'm like what? But we're trying to get a project off the ground
Hmm.
that where we're telling our own stories because she is an Emmy award winning producer. She is amazing. And so she's another person who she's the reason why, to be honest, I think that I've gotten my opportunities with LA Times,
Mm,
because the LA Times had an opportunity open for an interview for a position, and I was like, I can't apply to that. How We Do LA. Sorry, I couldn't go without How We Do LA. That's the name of the page that we're trying to like take off the ground and create content for. But she always encourages me to just throw my name in the bag, and like
yeah.
that in of itself has taught me it's either going to be a yes or a no, and the more you hear a no, the more it'll become normalized, because that's what life is a shit ton of no's before a dope ass yes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like her and my partner, my best friends, my family, I anyone who I'm close to or who I share blood with has heard me commiserate or be like, I don't know if this was cute, or I don't know if that was great, or should I post about this? And I'm always bouncing ideas off of everybody, all my loved ones. I have a really dope community of primos who like I chat with. Um, my brother too. Like my
Oh
brother's always
yeah.
encouraging me. Yeah, like, my brother's a
Shout out to
cool.
my mom.
Shout out to Neighborhood
Connected.
Orchestra, my brother. We are products of like our family and my mom, like, and my mom's a chingona and has always taught me like be a fucking chingona, like así con tu pecho,
Yeah.
like no matter what, regardless of how you
Right.
feel. So yeah, I think it's my family really, and like my loved ones, my homies, and also people like Locatora Radio who invited me to host one of their parties once. Like people like LA Taco, groups like LA Taco, like the Delos initiative with LA Times, the folks from LA Times. Like this wouldn't be possible if they didn't like allow me to like also flourish and learn and
Mm-hmm.
give me these opportunities. So I just give a shout out to everybody who's willing to listen to me and who sees something in me and keeps hyping me. And for you too, right? Like continue to do it, because we always have like you build community by like being putting yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's beautiful what community does for each other.
No, I love that. One, like, you're definitely someone that I admire, and I'm like, I love your tenacity and your bossiness too. Like, you just say it how it is. I think we need to do that, not just as like creators, but as women,
Yeah,
just in
exactly.
general.
And that's
Just,
another thing, like this idea
yeah.
that like I have been like there's been a lot of bro sentiment in the LA food culture too. Like
Oh,
when people
definitely.
try to
Yeah.
tell me how to do something or tell me that I'm wrong, or of course the fat comments which make me laugh my ass off because I'm like
Hmm.
it's thick 30 all the time over here, and it's not something I'm ashamed of. Yesterday I was called ghetto, or 2 days ago, and I'm like the person must have been new there, because I'm the
Right.
funny thing is that I'm such an educator. And so I have studied like the history and the context of these words. And I like on purpose, like el nopal en la frente. It used to be an
Hmm.
insult to say that. It might still be, right? But all of
Yeah.
that is a weapon of white supremacy. And I have the privilege to understand that because I studied ethnic studies, because I had family members that I had teaching me. And so it's like, for me, it's like, I love to make men uncomfortable. I love to make
Hmm.
whiteness uncomfortable, like this idea that we have to perform in a certain way because I'm a woman, because I write in food. Like I want to learn, but if it's at the expense of doing it for whiteness or for misogyny, like for a man telling me, I will.
Hmm.
I always think of that bad the Bugs Bunny meme where it's like no with his lips all
Right.
like no. If there's an opportunity to piss you off or to ruffle feathers when I know people are coming for me, like it's my favorite. And my
Oh,
mom's from
definitely.
Mexicali and like a hardcore peleonera, so I have her spirit in me. I'm just like I'm always like
Right. So I love that, you shout out your community. Also, your community has shouted you out, LA Times, LA Taco,
yes,
yourself. So, what do you see yourself doing in the next 2 years? Just because I feel like in 2 years, so much can happen. It's not even 5 years. It's
yeah,
already moving in motion. What do you see yourself doing? I know you mentioned a little bit that you want to travel. So,
yeah.
what things are you manifesting for yourself and for Hungry and East Los and just everything?
To be honest, I would love to have the opportunity to either be on camera in some capacity. So like I want to act, which I need to get
I
a
can see
flame.
you totally being in a show.
Thank you. Like I just need to say it out loud. I say it out loud in my house, but I'm like, it's a podcast. Let me say it out loud here. Like
I'm telling
I
you, it's archived here, so it's gonna
Right,
happen.
right. It's gonna happen. Yeah, I want to be on camera, or I want to be behind it learning too. Like I just want to
Mhm.
be. I when I tell you the amount of times I have almost been casted for either a game show or like a dating show, so I feel like something along those lines is brewing. I hope, but I just want to be in a creative capacity, and I
Mhm.
will always bring the social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion champion with me. Like the work that I do for my full-time job is not like separate. Obviously it is because it's a separate type of work, but like the
Mhm.
values and the philosophies that I believe and hold, are also present in my like what I do on the side. Like any story that I choose for Delos is like rooted in like hyping somebody else up. Shout out to the Chicali products for their Gordita y Bonita community plus size swap. You know, like the last video that I did.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, like
That's
there's so
journalism right there.
yeah, I loved it. So like the stories that I hopefully choose to do most of the time, it's to shed light on either something humorous, right? But like to put community on. So I
Mhm.
want to do that. Like I want to disrupt systems and like be someone. I mean, I don't think I look like the kind of person that's on TV. You know, like I think there's a lot more Latinas on TV, but I think more of
Yeah.
us need to be represented, right? And so yeah, like I see myself doing that, but in general, just doing creative work more, if not the same type this like the same amount as I do full-time work, if not full-time altogether, to be honest.
I am gonna put you on the spot because I know you say you don't like to be defined and put in a box. Me neither. Like I want to learn and live forever, to be honest. Just
Yeah,
continue to learn. So I saw that you sing.
I
Would you ever
do.
do something like that? Like, would you put a song out?
Oh, put a song. Hell yeah. If I mean, I always think of I always joke and I'm like, Junior, can we start like, can we have it just a night where you do? I call my brother Junior, by the
Oh,
way.
okay. Okay.
Family, he's Junior. He's not, I don't call him Memo. But I've always wished to be in like, I love the wedding singer and I've always wished to be in like a cover band because I only sing
Mm-hmm.
certain songs really well. And it's maybe it's because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't tried other ones, but my rasp is good for like certain mariachi songs and like certain Amy
Yeah.
Winehouse songs. So yeah, absolutely. I would love to like I mean, I'm not trained in that. Like
Mm-hmm.
every time a mariachi comes and hears me sing Los Laureles, they're like, "Do you want to join?" And I'm like, "I don't play an instrument." Like I literally my instrument is my voice. I don't know the guitarron. I don't know any of that. But yeah, I would love to like have fun with that. I feel like every time I go to karaoke, I'm always the one who's not embarrassed. It's upsetting because then I sing like the first 5 songs and then once everyone's buzzed, then they start singing. So
Right. You're like,
yeah,
let me get on the mic real quick.
right. Yeah. So yeah, I would. If the opportunity presented itself and I had support to like train, hell yeah, I would have so much fun.
I love that. Honestly, just for this episode, whoever's listening, like, don't feel confined to just one of your gifts because I
Yeah.
do believe we are so multifaceted.
Yes.
And whether you're curious about something, just do it, try it out. You know, it might not be for you, but once you try it, then you'll know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to ask you just one more because it is the Novio podcast. So, have you ever put your significant other on camera?
Yes. Like on Hungry Nislos?
Mhm.
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, I was
It
like,
depends on which reel. Like it's very quick because he's shy. I think he was
same,
in my
mine
one
too.
with Earl's Hot Dog. Yeah, Earl's Hot Dogs was the one that he might have last been in, but he always gets awkward as shit too. Like I'm always like, you have such a beautiful smile, but when I put the camera on you, he's like, I'm like, dude, like I'm not about to put I'm not about to have people talking shit. I'm just kidding. I love him regardless. No, yeah, I do, but he doesn't like it that much. He gets shy. Like he's very I tell him he's actually hilarious. Like I would not be able to be in a relationship with anybody who's not funny. And this fool is a walking comedian. So I always tell him that he should start his own podcast, like just of him talking shit. Like I don't like sports. That man watches
Mhm.
every single ball. If there's a ball and it gets thrown, he's sitting down watching it. Like he likes every sport known to mankind, but sometimes he teaches me things with his humor and I'm like, as somebody who's just a hashtag yay sports, I would listen to you because it's funny. Like he's stupid, like in a funny way. So yeah, I do, but he doesn't. He's tiene vergüenza.
Oh, el mío también. I feel you.
Yeah.
Man, so we're coming down to the end of the show, and you've provided so many cool hidden gems. Like, I generally do believe that it takes a lot of work to
Yeah.
not only put yourself on camera, but you do the journalism part too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you do the work, and you are an advocate for your community. So, like, let us know how we can connect with you. What are your socials, and how can we be a part of your community?
Yes, so follow me at Hungry in East Los. How we do LA is also slow, but it's also another project that we're excited about that is kind of branching beyond because we're gonna do like tell all videos, like literally how to submit paperwork for if you ran over a pothole and your tire got messed up, you know. So we're kind of like trying to engage audience in a different way through that medium. Um, but on TikTok, I'm also Hungry in Islos. I am not as active on there, and I should be just because it's a lot of fun on there too. But I get caught up. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. Hit me up, like look me up on the stories that I've written at alleytaco.com. If you look up Laura Tejeda, I'm there. And then with Delos. If you don't follow at Delos, which is the De Los Angeles Time, I think it's at De Los Angeles Times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, their initiative is mighty, right? Like the LA Times just laid off a lot of Latino journalists, so
Yeah.
boo to that. And I'm also advocating for the union, like the writers union, like the writers guild that's trying to. I'm over here probably butchering the name, but they're essentially asking for more pay. So I'm advocating for the writers that are still employed within the LA Times to be seen and to be paid equitably, because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I give a huge shout out to journalists of color, to journalists telling the truth, to journalists telling the stories of our people. If we don't tell our stories, someone else is going to tell them. And we've seen that happen, right? So I hate that LA Times just did that to a lot of folks. So make sure you follow at the Los Angeles Times and see some of my content that I post in collaboration with them as well, or they post in collaboration with me. And yeah, just Hungry Nislos is where it's at all the way. Instagram is where I'm most active.
I love it. We might have to do something,
I'm
maybe like
down.
an
I'm so down
event
for
or
collaboration.
yeah, no, I'm so down. Summer's coming.
Yeah.
I'm like my brain's going like this.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Ito Novio podcast. I'm sending you good vibes that all your work is
you.
paid from
Thank
now
you.
on. You know, you have the accolades, you've done the work. So, yes, ask for money. You deserve
I appreciate it.
it.
Yeah. And then I'm also down to do things for community, but I
Yes,
just learned too that a lot of like white men don't get asked to do things for free. If
right.
I'm being honest. Like, and so I'm trying to channel like the confidence of white men all the time because they
Mm,
have audacity and I'm like, why can't I?
period.
So that's literally how I'm living life. Like, y'all think I'm audacious? Go look at the government. Like,
Facts. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, and thank you all for watching. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram, TikTok. I feel you on TikTok. It's a different world over there, but we're trying.
yes, I need
And
to go
then,
follow you on there too. I haven't gone on TikTok.
yes,
I have like 197 messages from friends who just send me TikToks all day, and I'm like, I get more overwhelmed every time I go on.
but yes, just connect with us, and don't forget every Monday I'm here talking about love, life, and everything in between with your favorite creators. And this year, I'm manifesting more solo episodes so that y'all can get to know a little bit more about me. And then that way, I can break my shyness of sharing who I am and why I do what I do. But
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.